I'm Phoebe, 28 years old, and as I stand here watching the locksmith change every single lock on my apartment door, I can't help but think about what happened yesterday. I came home from work to find my sister Madison sprawled across my couch, her belongings in boxes throughout my living room, her makeup scattered across my coffee table. When I asked what was happening, she simply said, "Mom gave me a key, I live here now." Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever dealt with family boundary violations, hit subscribe. Now let me share how one phone call changed everything. Growing up in my family meant understanding one fundamental truth. Madison was the baby, and I was the responsible one. That dynamic was set in stone long before our father Frank passed away 10 years ago, leaving us each a substantial inheritance meant to secure our futures. I was 18 then, Madison 15, and while I used my portion to pay for college and build a career as a graphic designer, Madison burned through hers like it was Monopoly money. My mother Barbara never saw this as a problem. Every failed semester, Madison dropped out of every apartment, she was evicted from every job she quit. After 3 days, there was always an excuse. She's finding herself. She's artistic and free-spirited. She just needs more time. The world doesn't understand creative souls like Madison. Meanwhile, I graduated with honors, landed a job at a respected design firm, and saved every penny I could for 2 years to afford my own place. When I finally signed the lease on my one-bedroom apartment downtown, paying $1,800 a month that I earned entirely on my own, it felt like the biggest achievement of my life. This 700-square-foot space wasn't just an apartment. It was my sanctuary from the chaos that seemed to follow my family everywhere. I spent months making it perfect. Minimalist furniture that maximized the small space plants that brought life to every corner, a carefully organized home office where I could work on freelance projects. Everything had its place. Everything was chosen with intention. This was my proof that I could build something beautiful and stable, something entirely mine. The mistake I made was giving my mother a spare key. It was meant for emergencies only. I told her that explicitly when I handed it over. "This is just in case something happens to me," I said. "Please don't use it unless it's an actual emergency." She had nodded, tucked it into her purse, and said, "Of course, sweetheart. I understand boundaries." Looking back, I should have known better. Barbara's definition of emergency was flexible at best. When Madison got evicted from her 4th apartment 6 months ago for not paying rent and causing $5,000 in damages, my mother called it an emergency. When Madison's boyfriend got arrested and she needed somewhere to stay, that was an emergency too. Every crisis Madison created through her own irresponsibility somehow became an urgent situation requiring immediate family intervention. The conversation about Madison moving in with me happened 3 months ago. My mother had invited me to lunch at our usual spot, a small cafe downtown, where she always ordered the same salad and spent more time rearranging it on her plate than eating it. "Madison needs stability," she began, not even waiting for our drinks to arrive. "She's been through so much. She's been through exactly what she's created for herself," I responded, already exhausted by the familiar script. "That's harsh, Phoebe. She's your sister." "She's 25 years old, Mom. When I was 25, I was already living on my own, paying my bills, building my career." "Not everyone is you," Barbara said, her tone suggesting this was somehow an insult. "Madison needs support. Family helps family." "I've helped plenty. I've loaned her money she never paid back. I've given her rides when she wrecked her car. I've listened to her complain about how unfair life is while she refuses to get a steady job. She just needs a place to stay for a few months while she gets on her feet." "No." The word came out firm, final. "I love Madison, but I won't enable her anymore. She needs to figure this out herself." My mother's face hardened in that way I'd seen 1,000 times before, the expression that said I was being the difficult one, the selfish one, the daughter who didn't understand what family meant. "Your father would be disappointed in you," she said quietly, knowing exactly where to aim the knife. "Dad would understand that helping and enabling are 2 different things," I shot back, gathering my purse. "And he'd be disappointed that you've spent 10 years making excuses for Madison instead of teaching her to be an adult." I left before she could respond, but the damage was done. Our relationship, already strained, grew even more distant. She'd call occasionally, always with updates about Madison's latest crisis, always with the underlying message that I could solve everything if I just opened my home and my wallet. I held firm. My apartment remained my sanctuary, my safe space where I could breathe without the suffocating weight of family drama. Or so I thought. The first signs that something was wrong started about 2 months ago. So subtle, I initially dismissed them as forgetfulness on my part. I'd come home from work to find things slightly off. The yogurt I'd bought specifically for my breakfast would be gone. My expensive face serum would be lower than I remembered. A sweater would be hanging in a different spot in my closet. "You're being paranoid," I told myself, even as my instincts screamed otherwise. This was the lingering effect of growing up in a household where gaslighting was as common as breakfast. Madison would take things and swear she hadn't. My mother would move my belongings and insist I'd done it myself. Years of therapy had taught me to trust my instincts, but old habits die hard. When my favorite coffee mug disappeared, I finally asked the building manager if anyone had been in my apartment. He checked the logs, the security footage from the hallway, and found nothing unusual. "Just you coming and going, Miss Phoebe," he said kindly. "Maybe check with your neighbors. Sometimes packages get misdelivered." But packages weren't the problem. I called my mother that evening, trying to keep my voice casual. "Mom, have you been to my apartment recently?" "Why would I come to your apartment?" she responded, her tone offended. "You made it very clear I'm not welcome there." "That's not what I said. I just asked if you'd been there." "No, Phoebe. I respect your precious boundaries." The sarcasm in her voice should have been my second warning. The first should have been that she didn't ask why I was asking. 3 weeks ago, everything escalated. I'd been feeling sick at work, a stomach bug that had been going around the office, and my boss sent me home early. I was looking forward to curling up in bed with tea and Netflix, maybe ordering some soup from the place around the corner that knew my usual order. I opened my apartment door to find Madison sitting on my couch, eating Chinese takeout from containers spread across my glass coffee table, her feet up on my white ottoman, still wearing her shoes. "What are you doing here?" The words came out more shocked than angry. She barely looked up from her phone. "Mom said I could hang out here during the day. It's quiet, good for job hunting." Job hunting. I looked around at the evidence of her day makeup scattered on my bathroom counter dishes in my sink, her jacket thrown over my desk chair, my television paused on some reality show I'd never watch. "Yeah, it's hard to focus at Mom's place. She's always hovering." "Madison, you can't just be here when I'm not home. This is my apartment." She rolled her eyes, the gesture so familiar it made my chest tight with old frustrations. "God, Phoebe, I'm not hurting anything. I'm literally just sitting here." "You're literally eating my food in my home without my permission." "Mom said you wouldn't mind." "Mom was wrong." I made her leave immediately, watched her gather her things with exaggerated slowness, sighing dramatically with every movement. As soon as she was gone, I called my mother. "How dare you give Madison permission to be in my apartment?" "She needed somewhere quiet to focus on applications. You're at work all day anyway." "That's not the point. It's my home. You had no right." "I have a key for emergencies." "Job hunting is not an emergency." "Your sister's future is always an emergency to me, even if it isn't to you." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, I almost didn't catch it. Almost. But years of therapy had taught me to recognize when I was being played. If Madison enters my apartment again, without my explicit permission, I'm changing the locks. "You wouldn't dare. I'm your mother. Watch me." But I didn't follow through immediately. Some part of me hoped the threat would be enough that establishing this boundary would make them respect it. I should have known better. Boundaries to my mother were like rules to Madison's suggestions to be ignored. The complaints from neighbors started the following week. Mrs. Chen, the sweet elderly woman next door, mentioned hearing music from my apartment during the day. "I thought you worked from home now," she said kindly. "The music doesn't bother me, dear, but Mr. Patterson across the hall has been complaining to management." My stomach sank. I wasn't working from home. I was at the office every day from 8 to 5, sometimes later. Then packages started going missing. A delivery of art supplies I needed for a freelance project vanished. My favorite lipstick disappeared from my bathroom. A necklace my father had given me for my 16th birthday was suddenly nowhere to be found. I installed a small camera in my living room hidden behind a picture frame. What I saw made my blood boil. Madison was there almost every day, sometimes with friends, treating my apartment like her personal clubhouse. She'd go through my closet, try on my clothes, use my makeup, eat my food. Once I watched her take $40 from the emergency cash I kept in a kitchen drawer. The breaking point came 1 week ago. I arrived home to find not just Madison, but Tyler, her on-again, off-again boyfriend, who I knew had a drug problem and a criminal record. They were on my bed with their shoes on my white comforter, passing a joint between them. "Get out," I said, my voice so calm it scared even me. "Get out right now." Tyler laughed. "Chill, Madison said you were cool." Madison lied. "You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police." Tyler must have seen something in my face because he grabbed his things and left quickly. Madison followed, but not before saying, "You're such a bitch, Phoebe. No wonder you're alone." I called my mother immediately, my hands shaking with rage. Madison brought Tyler to my apartment. Tyler, Mom, the drug addict with a criminal record. "You don't know he's still using drugs. He was smoking pot on my bed. Marijuana is basically legal now. Not in my apartment it isn't, and that's not the point. She brought a dangerous person into my home without my knowledge or consent. Madison needs support, not judgment. Tyler makes her happy. Tyler is a criminal who got her into drugs in the first place. You're overreacting. Madison said they were just watching television. They were on my bed smoking drugs, probably going through my things. This ends now, Mom. I'm changing the locks tomorrow." "Don't be so dramatic. I'll talk to Madison about being more careful with guests." More careful. As if the problem was the guest choice and not the complete violation of my privacy, my safety, my home. I should have changed the locks that night. I should have known that my threat meant nothing to them, that they'd see it as a challenge rather than a boundary. But I had a major presentation the next day, a client that could change the trajectory of my career, and I needed to focus. I told myself I'd handle it after the presentation, after I secured this account, after things calmed down. That was my third mistake. Things never calm down with my family. They just escalate until something breaks. The morning of what would become the worst and best day of my recent life started normally. I woke at 6, did my yoga routine, made my protein smoothie, and reviewed my presentation materials one final time. The Anderson Group was a potential client worth $500,000 annually to our firm, and I was leading the pitch. I'd spent 3 months preparing, creating mock-ups, designing strategies, perfecting every detail. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the charcoal gray one that made me look older than 28, more established. I left my apartment at 7:45, my portfolio and laptop bag in hand, my mind already running through the presentation points. The meeting was scheduled for 9 and expected to run until noon. My boss had cleared my afternoon schedule so I could work from home on revisions based on the client's feedback. Everything was planned perfectly. The presentation went better than I could have imagined. The clients loved my concepts, praised the innovation, and seemed genuinely excited about working with us. By 1:30, I was floating on adrenaline and success, texting my best friend Emma about celebrating later. At 2 o'clock, my phone rang. Mrs. Chen's name appeared on the screen. "Phoebe, dear, I don't want to alarm you, but there's a U-Haul truck outside your apartment." My blood turned to ice. "A what?" "A moving truck. Several people have been carrying boxes into your apartment for the past hour. I thought perhaps you were getting new furniture delivered, but the young woman looks just like you, only blonde, and she seems to be moving in." Madison. Madison with her bleached blonde hair that she thought made her look like a movie star, but really just made her look washed out. "Mrs. Chen, are they still there?" "Yes, dear. They're carrying in what looks like a bed frame now." "I'm on my way." I ran to my car, my hands shaking as I started the engine. The 20-minute drive felt like hours, my mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. When I pulled into my building's parking garage, I saw it a 16-foot U-Haul truck parked illegally in the loading zone. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heels clicking against the concrete like gunshots. I could hear music before I even reached my door, some pop song blasting at a volume that definitely violated the building's noise ordinances. I threw open the door to a scene that made me physically sick. Madison was sprawled across my couch, her feet up on my glass coffee table, painting her nails a garish pink. Tyler was beside her, his dirty boots on my white ottoman playing video games on my television. My living room was unrecognizable, filled with boxes labeled in Madison's childish handwriting, Maddie's clothes, bathroom stuff, random crap. My home office, the space where I created, where I built my freelance business, where I found peace, had been transformed. My desk was shoved into a corner, my carefully organized supplies dumped into boxes. In its place was Madison's bed, unmade and covered in the hot pink comforter she'd had since high school. My kitchen was a disaster. Dirty dishes covered every surface, fast food wrappers were scattered on the counter, and several empty beer bottles lined the sink. My bathroom was worse. Men's toiletries were everywhere. Tyler's razor on my sink, his towel hanging on my hook, my expensive skincare products pushed aside for Madison's drugstore makeup. "What the hell is this?" The words came out as a roar, surprising everyone, including me. Madison didn't even look up from her nails. "I live here now. Mom gave me a key." She held up a shiny new key, clearly professionally made, not the emergency spare I'd given my mother. Tyler paused his game, looking at me with bloodshot eyes. "Yo, your sister said we could crash here. You got a nice place." My voice had gone dangerously quiet. "Yeah, Madison needs someone to help her with stuff, you know." I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of everything. The boxes, the mess, Tyler's presence, Madison's casual destruction of my space. "Madison, you have exactly 30 minutes to get everything out of my apartment." She finally looked up, her expression one of practiced innocence. "Mom said you'd be dramatic at first, but you'd get over it. Family helps family, remember. This isn't help. This is invasion. This is theft. This is breaking and entering." "Breaking and entering?" She laughed. "I have a key. Mom gave me permission. You can't kick me out." As if summoned by the mention of her name, my mother appeared in my doorway, using her copy of my key to let herself in. "Phoebe, stop overreacting," she said, surveying the chaos like it was perfectly normal. "Madison needs stability, and you have the space." "I don't have space for two people and their belongings. Don't be selfish. This apartment is big enough for sharing. It's a one-bedroom apartment that I pay for entirely by myself." "The lease doesn't say you can't have roommates," Barbara countered, as if she'd researched this. "And family doesn't charge family rent." That's when I realized this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This had been planned, orchestrated, prepared for. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the rage building in my chest. My mother had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "I had a key made 2 months ago. I knew if Madison moved in gradually you'd get used to it. But she was getting evicted yesterday, so we had to speed up the timeline." "You've been secretly copying my keys and planning to move my sister into my home without my consent for 2 months. When you put it like that, it sounds worse than it is. It's exactly as bad as it sounds. This is insane." Madison stood up, her wet nails forgotten. "Look, Phoebe, just accept it. I'm here now. My stuff is here. Tyler's here. We're not leaving. You want to bet?" I stood in my destroyed apartment looking at the 3 people who were supposed to be my family, but felt more like invaders. My mother with her self-righteous expression, Madison with her entitled smirk, and Tyler, who shouldn't even be here but somehow felt comfortable enough to put his feet on my furniture. Something inside me shifted, a calm settling over me that I recognized from every other time in my life when I'd had enough. "Everyone stays exactly where you are," I said, pulling out my phone again. "I need to document this properly." I started recording video this time, making sure to capture everything. The boxes with Madison's name, Tyler's belongings scattered around, the damage already visible on my walls from furniture being moved carelessly. "Phoebe, stop being dramatic with the camera," my mother said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. "Madison," I said, still recording, "please state for the video that you moved into my apartment today without my permission." "I don't need your permission. Mom gave me a key." "And where did Mom get that key?" Madison shrugged. "She had it copied from yours." "Without my knowledge. You're such a control freak, you never would have agreed if we asked." Perfect. I had everything I needed. I stopped recording and looked at each of them in turn. "You have 30 minutes to get everything out. If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the police." Barbara laughed, but it sounded forced. You wouldn't dare call the police on your own family. Try me. Phoebe, think about what you're doing, she said, switching to her manipulation voice. Your father would be so disappointed in you turning away your sister when she needs help. My father would be disappointed that you've turned one daughter into an entitled brat and tried to destroy the other daughter's life to enable her. Madison's face went red. I'm not an entitled brat. You're 25 years old, unemployed, living off other people, and you just broke into my apartment to squat here. What would you call it? Tyler stood up, then trying to use his height to intimidate me. Look, we ain't going nowhere. Madison said this was cool. We're staying. That was the push I needed. I stepped into the hallway and called building security. This is Phoebe Martinez in 4B. I have unauthorized individuals in my apartment who refuse to leave, including one with active warrants. I didn't actually know if Tyler had active warrants, but given his history, it seemed likely. I was right. His face went white and he immediately started gathering his things. Madison, I'm out. This ain't worth it. Tyler, wait. Madison ran after him, leaving me with my mother. Barbara's composure finally cracked. How could you do this? She's your sister. How could you do this? You're my mother. You're supposed to respect me, not conspire against me. I was trying to help both my daughters. No, you were trying to force me to take care of Madison so you wouldn't have to deal with the consequences of your enabling anymore. Security arrived, then 2 officers who knew me well from the 3 years I'd lived in the building. They took one look at the situation and radioed for backup. Ma'am, the older officer said to my mother, do you have legal authority to be in this apartment? I'm her mother. That's not what I asked. Are you on the lease? Did the leaseholder give you permission to be here? She gave me a key. I interrupted. I gave her an emergency key 3 years ago. She had it copied without my permission and used it to move my sister in while I was at work. The officer turned to Madison, who had returned without Tyler. Miss, did you move these belongings in today? My mom said I could. Your mom isn't the leaseholder. This is trespassing. Madison started crying, then the tears she'd perfected as a child to get out of trouble. Phoebe, please. I have nowhere else to go. You have Mom's house. She can't afford to keep me. Then maybe you should get a job. My mother tried one more manipulation. If you do this, Phoebe, I'll never forgive you. You're destroying our family. No, Mom. You destroyed our family when you decided your wants were more important than my rights. I stepped outside to make a phone call while security supervised the beginning of the move-out process. My hands were steady as I scrolled through my contacts to find the number I needed. Peterson Law Office, the receptionist answered. Hi, this is Phoebe Martinez. Is Mr. Peterson available? It's regarding my father's estate and an urgent family matter. James Peterson had handled my father's will and estate 10 years ago. He'd watched Barbara try to manipulate the terms to give Madison more money, had seen the dysfunction firsthand. Phoebe, his warm voice came on the line. What's going on? I explained everything quickly, the key copying the breaking in the current situation. This is criminal trespass, he said immediately. Your mother had no right to copy your key, and she certainly had no right to move someone in. Do you want to press charges? I don't know. I just want them out and to make sure this never happens again. I can send a cease and desist letter immediately. If they violate it, we can pursue a restraining order. Do it. There's something else, he said carefully. Your father's trust has provisions about criminal behavior. If your mother is charged with breaking and entering or trespassing, it could affect her distributions. I hadn't known that. I'll keep that in mind. My next call was to the person I should have called months ago, Uncle Robert, my father's brother. Robert was everything Barbara hated, straightforward, successful, and completely intolerant of manipulation. Phoebe, what's wrong? He knew I only called when things were serious. I explained the situation, and I could practically hear his blood pressure rising through the phone. That woman, he said, meaning Barbara, has lost her damn mind. I'm on my way. You don't have to. I'm co-executor of your father's trust, Phoebe. If Barbara is committing crimes, I need to know about it. While I waited for Robert, I made one more call to a locksmith. Emergency service available within 2 hours, complete lock change, including deadbolts. I walked back into my apartment to find Madison throwing things into boxes while crying dramatically, my mother directing her while shooting me venomous looks and security documenting everything. "You happy now?" Madison spat at me. "You've ruined my life. You ruined your own life by refusing to grow up." She threw one of my throw pillows at me, which security immediately documented. "Ma'am, any more aggressive behavior, and we'll have to call the actual police," the officer warned. Barbara tried once more. "Phoebe, please, let's discuss this rationally. Madison can stay for just a few weeks while she finds something else." "No. 1 week. No. You're being cruel." "I'm being an adult with boundaries. You should try it sometime." That's when Uncle Robert arrived and everything shifted. Robert was 6'4", built like the former Marine he was, and had the kind of presence that made people automatically straighten their spines. He surveyed the damage, looked at Barbara with disgust, and pulled out his phone. "Barbara," he said, not bothering with pleasantries, "you have exactly 1 hour to get Madison's belongings out of Phoebe's apartment." "You can't tell me what to do, Robert. This is between me and my daughters." "Actually, I can." He put the phone on speaker and dialed. "Chief Morrison, it's Robert Martinez. I'm at my niece's apartment where her mother has committed breaking and entering. Yes, copied keys without permission and moved someone in while she was at work. I see. Yes, I can bring her down if needed." Barbara's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Try me. Tom Morrison and I golf every Sunday. He takes property crime very seriously, especially when it involves family members taking advantage." He hung up and looked at Barbara. "You have 1 hour. And Barbara, that trust fund Frank left you as co-executor, I can freeze distributions pending investigation of criminal behavior." "You wouldn't dare. I've wanted to cut you off for years. You've turned Madison into a parasite and tried to destroy Phoebe's life. Give me an excuse." The threat of losing her $3,000 a month from my father's trust finally broke through Barbara's delusions. She began frantically helping Madison pack, muttering about ungrateful children and family betrayal. The move-out was chaos, but organized chaos thanks to security's presence and Uncle Robert's intimidating supervision. Madison made sure to be as destructive as possible, accidentally knocking my television off its stand, claiming it slipped while she was moving boxes. The screen cracked, dramatically spiderwebbing across the surface. "Oops," she said with fake innocence. "Guess you should have helped instead of standing there." I documented it with my phone, adding to my evidence file. "That's a $1,000 television, Madison. I'll be sending you the bill." "Good luck getting money from someone who doesn't have any. Then I'll sue Mom since she orchestrated this whole thing." Barbara dropped the box she was carrying, dishes rattling inside. "You wouldn't sue your own mother." "I absolutely would. Want to test me?" Uncle Robert stepped forward. "Actually, that brings up an interesting point. Barbara, you're legally liable for any damages that occurred during this criminal trespass you organized. That includes the TV, any damage to the walls, the locks that need to be changed, and Phoebe's time off work to deal with this." I hadn't even thought about that last part, but he was right. I'd left a crucial client meeting follow-up to deal with this mess. "This is ridiculous," Barbara snapped. "We're family. Family doesn't break into families' homes," Robert countered. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, then carrying a tray with tea and cookies. "I thought you might need some refreshment, dear," she said to me, completely ignoring the chaos. "Such a stressful day." She set the tray on my kitchen counter, then turned to Barbara. "You should be ashamed of yourself. I've lived here 15 years, and I've never seen such disgraceful behavior from a mother." "You don't know the situation," Barbara started. "I know enough. I've watched your lovely daughter work herself to exhaustion to afford this apartment while you enable the other one's laziness. My own children would never dare disrespect me this way." Madison, who had been silently packing, suddenly exploded. "This is all your fault," she screamed at me. "You've always been the perfect one, the favorite one. Dad loved you more. Everyone loves you more. Dad loved us both, Madison, but he would be disgusted by what you've become. At least I'm not a stuck-up bitch who abandons family." "I haven't abandoned anyone. I've just refused to enable your refusal to grow up." She grabbed a jewelry box from one of her bags. "My jewelry box," and I immediately stepped forward. "That's mine." "Prove it," she smirked. I pulled up photos on my phone from my insurance documentation showing every piece in that box. Would you like me to call the police now for theft, or will you return my property? She threw the box at me, jewelry scattering across the floor. Several pieces fell through the gap between the hallway and my apartment, disappearing into the space beneath. Madison! Even Barbara was shocked. I started recording again. Madison just threw my jewelry box, causing several pieces, including my grandmother's ring, to fall into the building's infrastructure. I want that documented. Security nodded, writing in their report. One of them got on his radio to call maintenance about retrieving the items. As they continued packing, more of Madison's true character showed. She had taken my laptop charger, my favorite coffee mug, several books, and even my prescription medication from the bathroom cabinet. Madison, those are my anxiety meds, I said, holding up the bottle she'd packed. I have anxiety too. Then get your own prescription. Everything she'd taken had to be sorted through, identified, and returned. It took the full hour just to separate our belongings, and even then I knew things were missing that I'd never get back. Finally, the last box was in the hallway. Madison stood in my doorway, mascara streaking down her face in black rivers. I hope you're happy, she said. You've ruined my life. Madison, you're 25 years old. You've never had a job for more than 3 months. You've been evicted from 4 apartments. You've stolen from me, lied to me, and now broken into my home. Your life was already ruined. I'm just refusing to let you ruin mine too. I hate you. That's your choice. Barbara stepped forward for one last manipulation attempt. Phoebe, someday you'll regret this. When you're alone with no family, you'll wish you'd been more forgiving. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who don't respect me. Your father, my father is dead. I cut her off. And you've spent 10 years using his memory to manipulate me. It ends now. Robert stepped forward. Ladies, time to go. The locksmith will be here soon, and you're no longer welcome on the property. As they gathered the boxes in the hallway, Barbara turned back one more time. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said, and closed the door in her face. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. My apartment was destroyed, my family relationships in ruins, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. Uncle Robert put his hand on my shoulder. You did good, kid. Your dad would be proud. You think, I know, he always worried Barbara would try to control you girls forever. He'd be glad you finally stood up to her. The locksmith arrived 90 minutes later. As he worked replacing every lock with high-security deadbolts that couldn't be copied without my authorization, I started cleaning up the mess. Mrs. Chen helped bringing over cleaning supplies and refusing to let me do it alone. Family isn't always blood, dear, she said, scrubbing Madison's nail polish off my coffee table. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them. By evening, my apartment was mostly back to normal. The television was broken, there were scuff marks on the walls, and I was missing several items I'd probably never see again, but it was mine again. I installed security cameras that night, one at the door and one in the living room, both connected to my phone. I changed every password I had, realizing my mother might have had access to more than just my apartment. I even called my bank to put additional security on my accounts. The real drama started the next day when Madison took to social media. She posted a heavily edited version of events claiming I'd made her homeless out of jealousy, that I'd always hated her for being prettier and more fun. She tagged all our mutual acquaintances, all our extended family, trying to rally support. But I had receipts. I posted the security footage of Tyler in my apartment, the video of Madison admitting to moving in without permission, photos of the damage she'd caused. I included a simple caption, the truth about why I had to change my locks. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years reached out to share their own stories of Barbara's manipulation and Madison's entitlement. My Aunt Jennifer, Barbara's own sister, commented publicly, "About time someone stood up to them. Barbara's been enabling that girl since birth." Even some of Madison's friends turned on her. One commented, "Girl, you're 25 and breaking into your sister's apartment, grow up." Madison tried damage control, posting crying selfies about being abandoned by family, but the evidence was too damning. Every time she lied, I had documentation to prove it. Eventually, she deleted all the posts and blocked me on everything. Barbara tried a different approach, calling extended family to plead her case. But Robert had already gotten there first, sharing the full story with anyone who would listen. The family consensus was clear: I'd done the right thing. "Your mom's always been controlling," my cousin Teresa told me. "Remember when she tried to make you wear that awful pink dress to my wedding, even though you were in the wedding party, and I'd picked blue?" I did remember. It was one of hundreds of times Barbara had tried to override someone else's decisions to get her way. 3 months have passed since I changed my locks and changed my life. The immediate aftermath was brutal, but necessary, like cleaning an infected wound. Madison's social media campaign backfired spectacularly when someone who worked at her last job commented with screenshots of text messages where she'd bragged about stealing from the register. Her reputation, what little remained, was completely destroyed. She lasted exactly 2 weeks at my mother's house before Barbara couldn't take it anymore. Without me as a backup plan, Barbara had to face the monster she'd created. Madison refused to get a job, stayed out all night, and when Barbara tried to set rules, Madison threatened to cut her off completely. "She won't even look for work." Barbara had called me crying one night, breaking our no-contact rule. "She says it's beneath her." That's what you taught her mom. Every time she failed, you made excuses. Every time she quit, you supported her. You created this. Can't you just— I hung up. Boundaries aren't boundaries if you don't maintain them. Madison ended up moving in with a friend from high school, someone else who lived off their parents, and spent their days planning Instagram photo shoots they called building their brand. Last I heard through the family grapevine, she was working part-time at a restaurant, her first real job in 2 years. The friend's parents, unlike Barbara, had rules: pay rent or get out. Barbara's situation deteriorated quickly without me as her emotional dumping ground and backup plan for Madison. She'd alienated most of the family with her manipulation over the years, and now that it was public, people stopped pretending to tolerate her. Even her book club, her one social outlet, asked her to leave after she spent an entire meeting complaining about her ungrateful daughters instead of discussing the book. Uncle Robert followed through on his threat to review the trust distributions. While he couldn't cut Barbara off entirely without cause, he could and did require detailed accounting of how the money was being spent. No more funneling thousands to Madison for shopping sprees disguised as necessities. "Your father set up that trust to provide security, not enable destructive behavior," he told me over coffee one morning. "I should have stepped in years ago." The most surprising development came from an unexpected source. My father's cousin Elena, who lived in Seattle, reached out after hearing about the situation through the family network. She owned a property management company and offered Madison a job with conditions. "She'll work maintenance first," Elena explained to me. "Learning what happens when tenants destroy property. If she can last 6 months, I'll move her to the office. But one strike and she's out." I passed the information to Robert, who passed it to Barbara. Madison, faced with the choice between actual homelessness and working maintenance, chose the job. She moved to Seattle 2 months ago, and Elena sends me updates. Madison hasn't been fired yet, which is a record. "She actually showed up on time yesterday," Elena's last text read. "Miracle." My mother and I haven't spoken directly since that phone call. She sends emails occasionally, long rambling messages about how I've destroyed the family, how my father would be heartbroken, how I'll regret this when she's gone. I don't respond. My therapist helped me write one final email. "Mom, I love you, but I won't accept abuse disguised as love. When you're ready to respect my boundaries and apologize genuinely for violating my home, and trust we can discuss rebuilding our relationship. Until then, please respect my need for space." She responded with more manipulation, which I forwarded to Robert in case we ever need it for legal purposes. The positive changes in my life have been remarkable. Without the constant drain of family drama, I've thrived. The Anderson Group signed with our firm, specifically requesting me as their lead designer. The commission from that account alone allowed me to start saving for a house down payment. I've also started dating someone, James, who I met at a coffee shop when he accidentally grabbed my order. He's a teacher, patient, and kind with a large, loud, loving family that's nothing like mine. When I told him about the lock-changing incident on our 3rd date, expecting judgment, he said, "Good for you. Boundaries are sexy." His family has essentially adopted me. His mother, Maria, sends me food every Sunday because you need proper meals, not that takeout. His sisters include me in their group chats, sending memes and planning girls' nights. It's the family dynamic I always wanted, but never had. "You know what I love about your family," I told James recently. "What's that? No one has ever tried to break into anyone else's house." He laughed. "The bar is so low it's underground. And yet my family couldn't clear it." My apartment has become even more of a sanctuary now. I replaced the broken television with a better one, sending Madison the bill that remains unpaid, but serves as documentation. I redecorated, removing any trace of that horrible day. The security cameras give me peace of mind, and the new locks are unpickable and uncopyable without my express permission. Mrs. Chen and I have become genuine friends. We have tea every Wednesday, and she tells me stories about her children who live across the country. She's teaching me to make traditional Chinese dumplings, and I'm teaching her graphic design so she can make newsletters for her community group. "You're the granddaughter I never had," she told me last week, and I cried. 6 months after changing the locks, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable seeing me, clearly having heard Barbara's version of events. "I heard about what happened with your family," she said carefully. "Did you hear the true version or my mother's version?" She paused. "I heard you kicked Madison out and changed the locks." "I kicked out Madison after my mother illegally copied my keys and moved her in while I was at work. There's a difference." Her eyes widened. "Barbara said Madison was staying with you and you suddenly kicked her out. I have security footage if you'd like to see what actually happened." She declined, but walked away looking thoughtful. Later, I heard she'd confronted Barbara about lying, leading to another bridge burned in my mother's shrinking world. The universe has a sense of humor, though. Last week, I got a call from Elena in Seattle. "I thought you should know," she said. "Madison's doing better. She's been promoted to the office, and she's actually growing up." "Really?" "Yesterday, a tenant tried to manipulate her into waiving late fees with a sob story. Madison told them rules are rules and held firm. I was shocked." "Maybe there's hope after all." "She also asked me for your address. She wants to send you something." I gave permission, curious but cautious. 3 days later, a package arrived. Inside was a check for $300, a fraction of what Madison owed me, but the first money she'd ever paid back. The note was brief. "Phoebe, this isn't enough, I know, but it's a start. I'm sorry I was such a terrible sister. Maybe someday you'll forgive me. Working for Elena is hard, but I'm learning. Did you know some tenants are actually worse than I was, Madison?" I stared at the check for a long time. It wasn't about the money. It was about Madison finally taking responsibility for something. I deposited it and sent her a simple response. "Thank you for the payment. I'm glad you're learning and growing. Keep going." We're not reconciled. We may never be. But it's progress. Barbara, on the other hand, remains stuck in her victim narrative. She's told anyone who will listen that I'm a cruel daughter who abandoned her family. But the people who matter know the truth. And more importantly, I know the truth. I saved myself from drowning in family dysfunction. I set boundaries and held them even when it hurt. I chose my peace over their chaos. And that one phone call to Uncle Robert, the one that started the chain reaction leading to my freedom, it was the best call I ever made. Looking back, the signs were always there. The lack of privacy, the disrespect for my space, the assumption that what was mine was theirs to take. But sometimes you need a shocking event, like coming home to find your sister moved into your apartment, to finally say enough. That's my story. Thank you for listening to every detail of this family drama. If you've dealt with boundary violations from family, I want to hear your story in the comments below. How did you stand up for yourself? What was your turning point? Please hit that like button if you believe in the power of boundaries, and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to be doormats for toxic family members. Share this video with anyone who needs encouragement to stand up for themselves, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable dysfunction. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to your life, your home, or your peace just because you share DNA. Boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. And sometimes one phone call really can change everything. Until next time, this is Phoebe reminding you that your home is your sanctuary and you have every right to decide who enters it. Stay strong, set boundaries, and never apologize for protecting your peace.